goals. So just to kind of recap you, in case you weren't here, the first week we looked at what? No, live goals. Yes, hashtag serve goals. We looked at what it looks like to serve and why we serve within the body of Christ. And then last week we looked at squad goals. Which Susan talked about how we are all kind of a squad here and how we can lean in to being a squad. And I'm going to stop saying that word now because it makes me feel really old. But how we can lean into to being a community here at Fuse. So this week I got the wonderful the pleasure of talking about relationship goals. I kind of felt hurt. My picture didn't even get into the hashtag relationship goals section. Thanks, Lisa. But I have a relationship. My wife is back there. Her name's Renee. I say that only because, like, if I were up here and I was like, I don't have relationships, then probably like not very much stock in what I have to say. But me and Renee actually met here. At Westover.
All right.
So we were PSR. So for those of you who have ever been a part of PSR, it occasionally works out after a long time. Anyway, let's move on to the meat of tonight. So we're going to be talking about relationship goals, and so to kind of to work on this a little bit to understand. When you guys say, okay, yeah, relationship goals, what is it? So I took to Twitter. Some of you occasionally still use Twitter, right? Most of you use Instagram. How many people use Instagram? I can't figure out how to search hashtags on Instagram, so I just searched hashtags on Twitter because I was at my computer, and it's like a bunch of like really weird. Do not go home and search relationship goals on Twitter. Please don't do it. It's not great, and I think that really speaks into a lot of what you guys are being told day in and day out. Whether you're at a public school, whether you're a private school, whether you're homeschooled, whether you are graduated, whether you are just not going to school for whatever reason, no matter where you are in life, you are still being fed into by media, by social media, by watching TV, by watching Netflix, by just going out in the world. There's pictures of couples, there's pictures of what these relationship goals are. And every day you're being touched by those, no matter where you are. You might think, oh, I go to a Christian school. I've never gone on social media. There's some way in your life that the culture of what the world thinks relationship goals are, you are being touched by it in some way. And so what we wanted to do tonight, and what I specifically want to do, is show you guys not what relationship goals are. I want to dive in a little bit deeper and switch it around, because I was told tonight you were talking on relationship goals, and I was like, okay, I can probably talk about that, like relationship goals, what's the best thing about being in a relationship, all this kind of stuff. But when I really started looking at it, I was like, what if we switched the order of those words? And what if we look at the goals of relationships? And so that's what I really want to focus on tonight. What is the goal of relationships? And I really think that the Bible lays out a really good way for us to see what the goal of a relationship is. And to do that, we're going to be looking at 1 Corinthians 10, 23 to 31. I believe it's going to go up on the screen. Yeah, it's really super long. I'm probably going to read like a little bit of the first part, but basically what Paul is talking here to the church in Corinth, and he's talking to them about like going and eating with non-believers. And basically at the time, non-believers were sacrificing animals and stuff at the temple. And so the Christians here were really worried about going and interacting with these non-Christians and like eating the food that was sacrificed in pagan temples. And so basically the whole first part of this, and I'm not going to read it, it's up there if you want to get into the details of it, but basically like a synopsis of that is basically Paul being like, hey, guess what? It doesn't really matter if you go and eat some food that's been sacrificed, or if you don't eat the food that's been sacrificed. Basically what he's saying is nothing should get in the way of sharing the gospel with other people. And then I kind of bolded the last one, because this is going to be our main kind of mission statement or mission verse for tonight. It says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. And truthfully, I really think when I searched the Bible and tried to figure out what is the main goal of relationships, especially relationships, not just dating relationships, but relationships across the board, whether it be with non-Christians, whether it be with Christians, whether it be with your boyfriend, whether it be with your girlfriend, what is the main purpose of our relationships? And I think that's it right there. All that we do for the glory of God. And that's so vital that we understand what that means and really what it looks like to do that. And I think that it's one of those things that we get so caught up in. We're like, okay, yeah, we're doing everything for the glory of God. But what does that really look like in our lives? When we go to school each day, what does it look like to glorify God? What does it look like to glorify God in our relationships? And that's specifically what I want to talk about tonight. So really what this, what we're looking at in that kind of that main goal is, and you kind of see it in the beginning here, is that different people have different ways of doing relationships. Some people, like in the beginning, some people had no problem going and eating the pagan sacrifices because they were there interacting with the non-believers there, and they were able to open up gospel conversations. And some of them didn't want to do that, and so they kind of said, no, I'm not going to eat that, and then were able to open gospel conversations that way. And really that's what he's saying. So he says, so whether you eat or drink, do everything to the glory of God. And what he's really saying there is, you're going to all do it differently. And I think that's so vital to look at when we look at relationships. Your relationship with your boyfriend or your girlfriend is going to look different than someone else's. It's going to probably look different than the last relationship you were in. It's probably going to look different than any future relationships you're going to be in. Every relationship that you are in is going to be different. And that's okay. That's what Paul's saying here. He says, no matter what way you do it, I just want you to do it for the glory of God. And that is so vital. And so, what I'm going to say here is that our main goal in a relationship, the main goal of a relationship is to glorify God. And a lot of you are probably sitting there like, okay, like I've heard people talk about, dating and this in the church. And a lot of times people say the main goal of dating is marriage. And I'm going to say no, that's not the case. The main goal of a relationship, especially the dating relationship, is not marriage. It is to glorify God. Now, through that, marriage comes out, right? But when we focus ourselves just on marriage, we're missing out on how to focus our relationship around God. And so I think it's really important that we take a step back and we say, this is not, the main goal is not marriage. The main goal is not companionship. The main goal is not just, I am lonely and I want someone to text when I'm falling asleep. You laugh, but a lot of you have girlfriends and boyfriends because that you want someone to Snapchat as you're falling asleep. But the main goal of a relationship is not for us. The main goal of our relationship is for the glory of God. And I know that that's very high-minded, so I want to take it down to 3 specific steps. 3 kind of rules for dating in high school, dating in college, dating after you're married. These are constantly true throughout all the dating or romantic relationships that you have in your life. So we're going to take a look at 3 very specific examples and 3 ways that we can really make the main goal of our relationships to glorify God. So the first one, and this one's so base level and so important for us to understand. And the first one is to become and to seek out healthy people. Number 1, to become and seek out healthy people. Okay, so what does that mean? The best way to have a healthy relationship, that's what we want. When we are trying to glorify God, we want to have a healthy relationship. The best way to have a healthy relationship is to be in a relationship with a healthy person. And that has to start with you. You have to be healthy. We see it, and we see it throughout the Bible. In Ephesians 4:17 through 24, we see this. I'm going to just read through this whole thing. It's up on the screen if you want to follow along. It says, "Now I say and testify to the Lord that you no longer walk as the Gentiles do in the futility of their minds. They are darkened in their understanding, alienated from the life of God, because of the ignorance that is in them. Due to their hardness of heart, they have become callous and have given themselves up to sensuality, greedy practice to every kind of impurity. But that is not the way you learned Christ. Assuming that you have heard about him and were taught in him, as in the truth of Jesus, to put off your old self, for which belongs to the former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and to be renewed to the spirit of your mind, and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God, in true righteousness and holiness." That whole thing is talking about two different parts of ourselves. The healthy version of ourselves and the unhealthy version of ourselves. And what is so vital is that we have to make a conscious decision. Notice that it doesn't just say when you accept Christ, you just automatically become this new person. Because it is true, we get new life within Jesus when we accept him, but it's a conscious choice. You can see they use the word to put on the new self. You can buy a new pair of jeans, but if you never put them on, they never get used. It's the same thing. Jesus, when we accept him, he gives us new life, but we have to make the conscious decision to put it on. And that's one of the biggest things that we jump into relationships without first looking to ourselves and without first putting on the new self of Jesus that he has given to us. And that is so vital. It might seem like, you're like, I know that I probably need to be a little bit better when it comes to, really seeking after God. I know I have a problem with anger that, I just get angry sometimes, but it's okay. I actually think that if I get into a relationship, it'll kind of help with that. How many people have ever said that? I know I have. Because it's like, oh no, the relationship will fix it. It's fine. Because if I just have another person in my life that, that I can, talk to and be dating, everything will be fine. And those other things will go away. But it's so true. Those things will be magnified if you do not first put off the old self and put on your new self that Jesus has given you. That's one of the greatest things. Jesus has said to us, you have a new life in me. And so often we try to say, yeah, but I like the new life that I can find in other people. And so often we jump into those relationships without first examining if we are healthy. So that's kind of the first part, to become a healthy person. Now notice that I didn't say that we just automatically are healthy people, because we're all very unhealthy. If you are a human being, inherently we are not healthy people. And that's why we have to choose to put on our new self. And that's what maybe you're sitting in here saying, I've made mistakes with relationships before. I've messed up really a lot when it comes to relationships, or in a dating relationship or just a regular relationship. You're like, I don't understand how to really do relationships. This is where it starts. Becoming a healthy person. And that's, if you can't get past that part tonight, if you're kind of stuck there, then the rest of the message probably isn't going to be great for you, because I'm going to be moving past it. But what I want you to do is hold on to that and know that you have the ability through Jesus to be able to move past the old self, the old sins. It's something that we talked about. If you were on fall retreat, something that Garrett hit really hard and on the first night, that we are bigger than our past. We are beyond what happened in the past, and that's so true. And that's really what we have to hit on before I almost just made a terrible joke because I said hit on, and when you're dating, you hit on people. I didn't do it though. So if we take a look at the second part of that, to become and to seek out healthy people. This is where a verse that you probably all, if you've ever heard a dating talk, you've probably heard this verse, and I'm going to use it because I think it's a really good one. And it's in 2 Corinthians 6:14. And it says, "Do not not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? Or what fellowship has light with darkness? Now, if anyone in here is an ox tamer or uses oxen all the time, you know what yoke means. It's not what's inside an egg, different. That is a yoke, but kind of different. So what yoking is basically with any large animal, with an oxen, with a horse, with cow. I think they do it with cows. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not in the farming business. But I know it's with oxen specifically, is yoking. And so what they do basically is they take big boards. They're kind of like, you know those things that whenever you go to like a weird like touristy town that's like Western, and you can put your arms and your head in that thing, and it's like weird, and it's kind of like that, but for oxen. And it hooks up the lead oxen together, so that if one starts going faster than the other, it pulls the other one back. Or if one starts going slower, it kind of pulls the other one forward. And so it's kind of this way, and it's used here in the Bible in a way of thinking of yourself as an oxen. I'm not calling anyone an oxen. I'm just saying think of yourself as an oxen. So if you start dating someone, think about they are yoked with you because you have a relationship with them. You are hanging out together. You are talking together. You are yoked. And so if you think about it in a way of if you have moved past the first part here and have become a healthy person, but you are yoked with someone who is not a healthy person, someone who has not found their new self in Christ, then you are going to be slowed down by that person. That's the purpose of yoking, is so that you basically take two animals that have different directions and different wills, and you tie them together so that they can pursue the same purpose. And if you are yoked with someone that does not know Jesus and does not have a healthy relationship with taking off that old self and putting on a new self, then you are going to be slowed down by that person. And what's even worse is that you're going to start getting led into areas that are going to bring back out the old self. And so what it's one of those verses that's used so often, but it's just one that we have to look at because it's so true. Because when we are tied with someone who is not a healthy person, it slows us down, it brings us down, and it slowly takes our health and starts to bring it down. And when you're in a relationship, that's the first kind of part that starts dragging you down into a relationship that is not glorifying God. And that's the main goal of our relationship. So this is the first and foundational level thing that we have to become and seek out healthy people. And it's so vital. And so I'm going to move on past this, and I know some people are there. I know some people are stuck there. Maybe they are having a hard time really finding that new self, or maybe you're dating someone that is having a hard time finding that new self. I want you to stop there and just think through kind of what that looks like for your future. Because if you are trying to be in a relationship like that, it's not going to work out. I don't mean to tell you that to say break up with anyone that has issues. We all have issues. But if you are not constantly seeking out, trying to become a healthy person, you should not be in a relationship. Because you are either taking away from someone else and their health, or someone else is taking away your health. So let's move on to number 2. Let's figure out where I am. So number 2, so after we've kind of gone through that, we have become and seek out healthy people. That probably means that you are in a relationship, hopefully with a healthy person. So if you have done step 1, you're there, you're dating someone. So what does that look like? And this is one of the biggest areas where kind of our definition of relationship goals and the Twitter definition of relationship goals vastly differ. And that is to see dating as an opportunity for encouragement and not intimacy. Let me say that one more time. To see dating as an opportunity for encouragement and not intimacy. So you might be saying, okay, well, like I've heard the word intimacy. Usually it means sex. And yeah, we'll use it in that sense as well. But intimacy is just getting incredibly close with someone. And so oftentimes we're saying, yeah, absolutely. That's one of the great things about relationships. You get to come really close to someone. And that's true, but we'll talk about in just a minute what it looks like to kind of hold back on that intimacy because it's so important. But what I want to first talk about is how do we use our relationships to be an encouragement? Because an encouragement builds people up. And when we take intimacy too far within a dating relationship, we start to destroy. So they might not seem like they're opposites, but when it comes to dating, encouragement and intimacy are polar opposites. One builds up and one destroys. And so I want to take a look kind of what it looks like to be an encouragement and how we use dating to be an encouragement. And so let's take a look. I believe 1 Thessalonians 5:11 it says, "Therefore encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing." I think actually that Susan talked about this a little bit last week, how we can stir up each other in love, and that's very similar to this. But let's apply it a little bit to dating relationships, because when you are in a relationship with another human being, you have to start encouraging one another, and that is one of the great things about dating. Encouragement is so important, even in relationships that you aren't, not in dating and romantic relationships, just relationships with your friends. You should be encouraging one another, and I'm sure that you probably do that. If you think about your best friend who's not like romantic relationship, just your best friend. Probably, if one of them's having a bad day, like if you're having a bad day, you go to your best friend. If they're having a bad day, they go to you to try to find that encouragement. And that's what it's so important that's the next step as far as relationships go. Because once we have found someone that is healthy, we have to continue to grow in that health. And for ourselves too, we have to continue to grow in that health. So really encouraging one another is kind of that next step after the health. Because just like I said, you have to put on the new self every day. And encouragement helps a lot. And then we look all over Scripture. There's a lot of different mentions of physical closeness and intimacy. We're just going to call it intimacy because it's not just physical closeness; it's spiritual closeness, emotional closeness. It's really tying yourself so close together, and really intimacy should be saved for marriage. And that's kind of the main goal of intimacy is within the context of marriage. And so let's just take a look in Hebrews 13:4. It says, "Let marriage be held in honor among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled, for God will judge the sexually immoral and adulterous." In Song of Solomon 8:4, it says, I adjure to you, O daughters of Jerusalem, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. Intimacy before marriage is not something that we just do because God says don't do. Because if that was the case, there would be no consequences. If that was the case, we would just be like, well, it's not that big of a deal. Because God forgives our sins, and it's just a sin. And of course, God forgives sexual sin. He forgives all sin. All sin is equal in God's eyes, and He has split it from the east to as far as the east is from the west. And that is not like a measurement that you can calculate. It's gone. But one of the biggest things when we become intimate, whether that be physical, whether that be spiritual, whether that be emotional intimacy with someone that we're just dating, it destroys ourselves. It destroys us. This is not just something that we say, yeah, I don't want to have sex until I'm married because God says that's the right thing to do. It's really because when we experience intimacy outside of that marriage covenant, it starts to destroy. And so if encouragement is building up, then this is tearing it down. And so probably a lot of you are like, okay, so what does intimacy mean? If you were here the last time that I spoke, I talked about lines, and oftentimes this is a question that comes up when someone's talking about dating. Okay, so what's the line? Can I kiss him? Can I hold a hand? What does the line look like? Where can I sit on the line? And if you heard my talk last time, I talked all about lines and the lines in volleyball and how technically if you hit the line, it's still in. And so a lot of people just kind of sit on that line. And it's the same thing. We do the exact same thing. We try to push it as far as possible, right? We try to say, the line is here, so I'm going to walk right up to it. And as long as I stay on that line, I'm in bounds. But when we look at what we've looked at so far, that the main purpose of a relationship is to glorify God. Glorifying God does not mean sitting on a line. Glorifying God means that we want to run as far away from the line so that we can get closer to God. And that, if you take nothing else away from this, I hope that you hear, I'm not saying, here's the line, sit on the line. I'm saying the line's somewhere. Everyone has a different place that the line is. But I'm not worried about the line. Because if I'm running towards Jesus, I don't have to worry about the line. If I'm running toward God and trying to glorify Him, I don't have to worry about where the line is. Because that is no longer in the question. Because I'm no longer looking for intimacy. I'm trying to build that person that I'm dating up with encouragement. He wants us to find Him in our relationship. So, again, we're human. Even if we do both of the first two steps incredibly well, there are still going to be things that we've got to go to God with. Because we're humans. And because we have to make that conscious choice to put on the new self. And God has made us so that we want to experience intimacy. That's why He created marriage. And so, of course, we're going to want to chase after intimacy. We're going to have to go to God with things. And this is kind of where I want to stick the landing, I guess. How do we go to God? How do we go to God with our relationship things? And I'm just going to give you a short list. This is by no means a comprehensive list, but how do we do this? The first way I would say is definitely prayer. If you have an active prayer life with God, and you can go to Him with these relationship questions and seekings, your relationship will increase leaps and bounds. Maybe it's finding a mentor. Maybe it's finding someone, maybe your small group leader. Maybe it's someone that's older than you that you know has a good relationship, or someone just that you can talk to about things that can feed into you godly advice. That's the biggest part. It's not just someone you can talk to, it's someone that can feed into you godly advice. Maybe it's just being able to go into His Word, into the Bible, digging in. The Bible has so much to say about our lives and how we live our lives and the relationships that we have in our lives. There's so many, and that's just a really short list, and I would say chase after those three, and more will come flying at you. But the biggest thing for me is if our goal is God, and so many people are saying, okay, yeah, if our goal is to glorify God, our goal is God, then how do we enter into a relationship with other people? How does that work? It's like, it's a three-way relationship at that point in time, and so it's how do we reconcile that? And One of the best things that has ever been said to me, and it's one of the things that has stuck with me for the longest time, and I need like two people to help me illustrate this. Ben, will you help me? Ian, will you help me? Yeah, this will be fun. Yeah. Okay, you guys stand like out there. Make a triangle with me. Okay, so let's just say I'm not saying this. Let's say I'm God, and look, we're just talking about friendship here between these guys. If you were, like if we could insta put in whoever you want to date, but we'll just leave it as friendship between you two. If you look at this, so often these two people, you can walk towards each other, right? Walk towards each other, and you get closer, right? Whoa. You get closer. But notice that we're still the same distance away because you haven't taken the time to invest into God. Now go back to your corners. This kind of goes with the equally yoked thing, but let's say you are chasing after God. So you're walking towards me. So you've gotten closer to God, but notice that you have not gotten any closer to Ben. And we can do the same thing, but now watch. You can stay there. Ben, walk towards me. When Ben is pursuing God and Ian is pursuing God, they become closer together. You guys know how to see. That is what it looks like to have a relationship that is chasing after the glory of God. I hope that something in here has hit home, and if nothing else, maybe just that idea of chasing after God and what it looks like in a partnership between two people. That if you were just the one walking, you're not getting any closer to the other person. But if you are both chasing after, if you have found someone that has put on the new self, and you yourself have put on the new self, and you encourage each other rather than just chase intimacy, the result of that is that you're going to bring God into that relationship, and you are going to continue to be able to pursue God and to pursue His glory. Let's pray. Dear Lord, I just thank you so much for this time. Lord, I thank you for the words that you have shown me, just as far as relationships go, Lord. As we look at relationships, Lord, the Bible doesn't have a whole lot about what dating is. But Lord, your word is chock full of ways that we can chase after you. And Lord, when we chase after you, when we seek you, there's nothing like that. And Lord, I hope tonight that when we look at the relationship goals, Lord, that our main relationship goal is our relationship with you. Because all the other relationships will flow out of that one. If we can find you and seek you, Lord, you said it. Ask and you will be given. Seek and you will find. Lord, you want a relationship for us. Because you want to be able to show through when that relationship blooms and matures into a marriage, Lord, you can show us how you feel about us through that relationship. But Lord, so often we just say, yeah, I want to date someone because I want to date someone. And Lord, when we do that, it's not setting us up to chase after you. So Lord, I just pray that as we are sitting in this room and just thinking about the different relationships in our lives, whether it's dating, whether it's a friendship, whether it's the relationship with our parents, Lord, these principles continue to move throughout. Lord, I just pray that you give us the sight to see
what in our lives needs to change so that we can chase after you. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.